Aboard the USS Independence, a $500 million marvel of naval engineering, the sea was never just a backdrop. It was an adversary, a companion, and sometimes a quiet menace. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Keller stood alone at the bridge's forward observation deck, his gloved hand pressed against the cool glass as 30-foot waves hurled themselves at the hull below. The ship shuddered, not in weakness, but in acknowledgement, as if it too understood the stakes of this voyage. The sky was slate gray, churning with a kind of brooding intensity that made even the seasoned among the crew tighten their jawlines. Salt spray slicked every surface, and the wind's howl swallowed conversation unless barked into radios. For Keller, this deployment wasn't routine. This route through the South Pacific during storm season was infamous for rogue waves, those freak walls of water that rose without warning and could tear lesser vessels in two. But the Independence wasn't lesser. It was built for precisely this type of trial. Down in the Combat Information Center, Petty Officer Elena Ruiz adjusted the sonar filters, trying to track an anomaly that kept blinking on and off like a glitch in the system. "It's probably just surface clutter," she muttered, though her voice carried a sliver of uncertainty. She was new to the Independence, reassigned from an aging destroyer where storms meant lockdowns and prayer. But this ship, this sleek, wave-piercing ghost of the sea, was different. Everything about its stability was a mystery to her, from its unconventional trimaran hull to the eerie quiet of its motion, even as it plowed through a violent swell. Above her, Commander Keller stepped back from the observation panel, wiping his fogged-up glasses. He turned toward Lieutenant Vega, the ship's navigation officer, who was hunched over the digital charting console. "That front's closing in faster than forecasted," Vega said, voice tense. "We've got maybe 30 minutes before we're blind out there." Keller nodded. "Then we see how the ship holds up. Stay on trajectory. Let's not show the ocean we're afraid." That was the tone he'd set from the moment the mission began, a careful balance of realism and unflinching command. The crew respected it, especially now. Their route skirted disputed waters and was intentionally publicized by the Pentagon. This wasn't just about testing equipment, it was a show of presence, an unspoken challenge to the rivals watching from beneath the waves or far beyond the storm. The Independence groaned as it hit a rising wall of water, its bow slicing through the liquid barrier with mechanical indifference. Inside the galley, trays rattled, and an off-duty sailor cursed as his coffee leapt from its mug. No one was surprised. You didn't sign up for sea duty without accepting the rhythm of the ocean's moods. Down in engineering, Chief Byron Renner barked commands over the din of machinery. He was a lifer, 22 years in, and every one of them spent below decks. "Balanced tanks are stabilizing," a junior tech called out. "Shift to automated trim control?" Renner shook his head. "Not yet. I trust the steel more than I trust software in a storm." Even now, amidst the chaos, the ship remained responsive. No unexpected rolls, no hard leans. Its triple-hulled foundation redistributed the ocean's fury with eerie elegance. The USS Independence didn't ride the waves. It confronted them head-on, absorbing force with a kind of calculated defiance. Ruiz in sonar called out again, voice more urgent this time. "That signal. It's not clutter. It's consistent now, roughly 6 kilometers starboard, depth erratic, like it's bouncing with the swells." Keller leaned into the comms. "Submarine?" "Unconfirmed," Ruiz replied, "but the pattern's wrong for marine life." A new tension swept through the control center. The storm, once their main concern, was no longer the only threat. Keller weighed the odds. Visibility outside was collapsing fast. Deploying countermeasures in this weather was dangerous, but ignoring an unknown signal could be worse. "Keep tracking," he ordered. "Passive only. No active sonar unless we confirm intent." Outside, the ship began its slight pivot into the storm, adjusting course to maintain cover without raising suspicion. Vega entered new coordinates while glancing sideways at Keller. "You think it's watching us?" he asked. Keller didn't answer right away. He knew what Vega was really asking, whether they were sailing into a trap. If the ocean didn't get them, maybe something else would. But fear was an indulgence a commanding officer couldn't afford. "I think this ship was built for both kinds of battles," Keller said finally. "The ones with missiles and the ones with monsters." A long boom reverberated across the hull as another wave crashed into the side. The Independence swayed but held firm. Keller steadied himself, hands gripping the overhead rail. Every fiber of the ship felt alive beneath his feet, not just metal and circuitry, but muscle and instinct. It was doing what it was designed to do. And yet, as the storm deepened and the signal grew stronger, it was clear this voyage was becoming more than just a test of seaworthiness. Somewhere out there, in the shadows of the waves, a new confrontation was waiting. The ship had proven it could withstand the wrath of nature, but the crew was about to find out if it could handle something far more deliberate. In the narrow confines of the sonar room, the hum of machinery and the rhythmic pulse of data feeds had taken on an almost hypnotic cadence. Petty Officer Elena Ruiz leaned closer to the display, her brow furrowed. The signal hadn't vanished. Instead, it had taken on a disturbing clarity, an unmistakable pulsing resonance that danced just outside the parameters of known underwater vessels. It didn't behave like a whale or a submersible. It hovered, then darted erratically, as though observing from just beyond the curtain of the storm. She keyed her mic. "Bridge, Ruiz again. That contact's still shadowing. It's staying outside sonar triangulation, but its movement is responsive." On the bridge, Keller barely blinked. He exchanged a glance with Vega, who had already widened the live navigational chart. Their position in the Pacific was far from any routine shipping lane, deep in contested waters that bristled with submerged suspicion. The ship was under silent scrutiny, not just by the sea, but by unseen eyes that might belong to a rival navy or something worse. An experimental drone sub, perhaps, operated from afar. "Keep it passive," Keller said. "Log every change in depth and speed." The storm outside intensified, waves battering the tri-hull like fists against a bunker. But the ship held its poise with almost arrogant calm. Sailors moved through passageways in silent coordination, every action sharpened by the unspoken knowledge that this wasn't just a test of the ship's design. It was now a confrontation with an unknown adversary playing cat and mouse beneath the surface. Chief Renner was in the engineering control room, bracing against a support rail as the lights flickered momentarily. "Stabilizers holding!" a tech shouted. Renner nodded but said nothing. He didn't like the silence between wave crashes. It was too measured, too perfect. He'd served long enough to know when nature was no longer the primary threat. In the forward radar compartment, Lieutenant Vega sat down beside Ruiz. She didn't look up. "It's mimicking our depth shifts," she whispered. "Every time we adjust, it does the same." "That's not random ocean debris," Vega muttered. "That's stalking behavior." Ruiz clicked a few switches, layering a heat signature scan over the sonar pattern. Her heart sank. The contact wasn't just shadowing, it was warming, slowly, as if powering up. Vega stood, clenching his fists. "We need to know what that is. I'll talk to Keller." Keller was already watching the main screen, where ship telemetry and sea state data merged into a turbulent ballet of motion and noise. But his focus was razor-sharp. "We don't spook it," he said the moment Vega approached. "We let it make the first move." "And if that move is torpedoes?" Vega asked. Keller's response was immediate. "Then we earn every dollar that built this hull." Below, in the missile bay, weapons crews began quiet pre-checks, just in case. The ship was designed for rapid response, but in this weather, every action was slower, calculated. Water slammed the superstructure in rhythmic bursts, and metal groaned from tension few vessels could endure. In her cabin, Ruiz stared at the signal trace on a small backup monitor she'd set up beside her bunk. She'd tried to dismiss the unease growing in her chest, but the signal had started to loop, like an echo, or worse, a recording. A decoy? A misdirection? She didn't know. But its regularity disturbed her. She began compiling timestamps, hoping for a pattern. Suddenly, alarms blared through the ship. Not collision, not fire. A low, drawn-out sonar alert. Contact approaching fast. Keller ran to the bridge's central console. "Status!" Ruiz's voice cracked through the speakers. "The contact is closing at speed. Surface breach trajectory. Visuals now!" They waited, seconds that stretched into a lifetime, until an aft camera showed the ocean parting, not with a crash, but with a slither. A black mass, low to the waterline, sleek and almost invisible against the churning sea, broke through the surface and shadowed the Independence's starboard flank. It moved like a predator, not a vessel. Then, just as quickly, it vanished beneath the waves. "Was that a drone?" Vega asked, jaw tight. "Too big," Keller replied. "Too coordinated." A pause settled over the bridge like dust after an explosion. The enemy, whoever or whatever it was, had made its presence known, and the message was simple. "We see you. We can reach you." Keller adjusted the comms. "All stations, this is not a drill. Maintain readiness protocol. Passive tracking only. Do not engage unless ordered." Back in sonar, Ruiz sat motionless. Her screen showed nothing. The contact was gone again, but she didn't need visuals to know the truth. The Independence wasn't alone out here. Not anymore. The sea roared louder, mocking their vulnerability. Every wave now felt heavier, each creak of steel beneath their boots more intimate. Somewhere in the black below, their adversary waited, watching, thinking. And whatever came next, the USS Independence would have to face it in complete darkness, without reinforcements, on the most hostile battlefield known to man, the open sea. The storm had not relented, but it was no longer the crew's primary concern. What haunted the corridors of the USS Independence now was silence, an eerie, deliberate hush broken only by the occasional rattle of loose bulkhead panels or the dull thump of waves colliding with the trimaran's hull. The contact, the unidentified object that had breached the surface beside them, had vanished as if swallowed by the sea, but the tension it left behind saturated every compartment, every breath. In the Combat Information Center, Commander Keller stood beside the digital map, eyes narrowed on the sensor range arcs surrounding their position. The absence of data was louder than noise. Ruiz was recalibrating the sonar filters in real time, desperate for any echo, any flicker of movement. It wasn't just about tracking now, it was about preparing, psychologically and tactically, for something no protocol had covered. "Sir," Vega said quietly, standing at his shoulder, "I think we're being tested." Keller didn't respond right away. He was watching how the crew moved, how Renner's team in engineering kept systems humming with near-supernatural calm, how the junior officers were avoiding unnecessary chatter, conserving mental bandwidth for the unknown. They all knew this wasn't just an exercise in resilience. This was a crucible. "We've had drones shadow before," Keller said finally, "but never like this. Never this intimate." Ruiz spoke up, her voice thin from hours of focus. "Sir, I ran a loopback pattern on the contact's heat signature. It was cycling, deliberately modulating its own thermal output. That's not just stealth. That's camouflage with AI assistance." Vega's face hardened. "So we're not being observed, we're being analyzed. And the moment we react with aggression," Keller added, "we tell it everything about how we fight." Down in the mess hall, meals were untouched. Sailors sat in tight groups, eyes darting toward the overhead lights with every creak and groan. Ensign Davis, barely 22 and on his first deployment, whispered to a fellow crewman, What if it's already inside the sonar blind spot? What if it's under us? The other sailor, a seasoned boatswain's mate, didn't answer. He just stared into his coffee, as if trying to divine answers from the swirl of black liquid. Back in engineering, Chief Renner barked orders to double-check the watertight seals on the auxiliary ballast tanks. Not because of flooding fears, but because he didn't trust what wasn't leaking. The Independence was holding too well, the ship's balance unnaturally perfect in worsening seas. He suspected their shadow knew exactly where to strike to throw that equilibrium off, if it chose to. At 0300 hours, Ruiz's console blinked, a new signal, faint, purposeful. "Commander," she said, adrenaline sharpening her tone. "We have an audio ping, not random, it's a sequence." Keller moved to her station, Vega close behind. The screen displayed the waveform, a low-frequency burst broken into evenly spaced intervals. "It's Morse," Vega realized. "Or trying to be." They translated it manually, line by line. The final message was brief, chilling. "You are visible. Do not follow." Ruiz looked up. "Sir, it's disengaging." Keller exhaled slowly. "Make no move to track. Let it go." "But, sir, if it wanted us gone, we'd be gone," Keller said. "This was a rehearsal for something bigger." The sea, for all its noise, now seemed quieter, as if whatever intelligence had been lurking beneath had receded back into the deep, content with what it had learned. The enemy, whether human or machine, had decided not to strike. Not today. Vega leaned against the bulkhead. "What do we tell Fleet Command?" Keller's gaze lingered on the sonar screen. "We tell them the $500 million we spent wasn't wasted. The ship held, the crew held, and the next time? There won't be a next time like this. They'll come harder, or not at all." By dawn, the storm began to loosen its grip on the ocean. Sunlight pierced through shredded clouds, casting long, flickering rays across the still turbulent waves. The Independence resumed patrol at reduced speed, her systems recalibrating and her crew somber but composed. In her cabin, Ruiz saved the ping data to an encrypted file, labeling it simply Contact Echo 1. She stared at the blank portion of the map it had vanished into, uncharted, unknowable. The sea had offered no closure, just a whisper. "You are not alone."